Hey! Now, most people would probably agree that the Earth is round, much like this old school jack-o'-lantern pumpkin thing here that you put the candy in. Most people would agree. Earth is round, sort of like this. But there are those people, those unmentionable types, who would probably believe otherwise. And, well, I've got just the thing for them. Direct to you from 1990, it is How We Learned the Earth is Round by Patricia Lauber and illustrated by Lloyd. And what a lovely illustration indeed to start us off here, this being one of the central figures of our book. I'm sure that we'll learn more. Children want to be up to date. As children read or are read to, they feel themselves stretch in importance. Well, that's a strange way to put it, but I guess I can't really disagree. Look at that text. The Children's Reading Institute. And thank you to the Groves for dropping off this book and a couple other books like this. I picked it up a little while ago from one of the local thrift stores, and, well, we're going to give it a read. So, today, nearly everybody knows that the Earth is round, but long ago, people were sure that the Earth was flat. They thought it was flat because it looked flat. It still does. Yeah, it still does kind of look flat when you're just kind of standing on it. It's like a map or something. I mean, it's kind of hard to believe that it's round, right? What? Stand out on a prairie. There you go. Flat. It's. I've been to a place in the United States that looks like this, somewhere in the Midwest, and yeah, it's flat. Can't argue with that. Likewise, sail out onto the ocean. You can see for miles, and the Earth looks flat. So is it flat? Is it flat? There's going to be a twist here. I can feel it coming. Climb a mountain. Now the Earth looks rough and bumpy, but it doesn't seem to curve. It doesn't look round. It looks flat with a bunch of ridges on it. And here we have a couple people who are sitting triumphantly above a mountain that they've, or on a mountain that they've climbed above this town here. That's a really small town that just seems to have just a graveyard in it. That's a little strange, but moving on. The Earth looks flat because it is big and we are small. We see only a tiny piece of it at one time. The tiny piece does curve, but the curve is too slight for our eyes to see, and that is why, for thousands of years, people thought the Earth was flat, and continue to this day to think the very same thing. The Earth's real shape was discovered about 2,500 years ago. The people who discovered it were Greeks. Greeks! Did you get that? They were Greeks. At first, the Greeks, too, believed that the Earth was flat, but certain Greeks were great thinkers. They thought hard about things they saw and tried to explain them. They asked themselves questions. Why? What if? And then they thought some more. So that's some deep thinking there. Why? What if? And then thinking a little bit more about that. How many people are doing that today? I'd argue probably not that many. Everybody knew that a strange thing happened when a ship left the harbor. As it sailed away, it appeared to sink. First the hull disappeared, then the bottom of the sail, then the top. As a ship returned, it seemed to rise out of the sea. First the sail appeared, then the hull. The Greeks wondered why. That is true. You can kind of see it here, but if you're curious, go ahead and pause this video and look up ships going over the horizon line out to sea. It's kind of crazy. And some people who are flat earthers believe that there's some explanation as to why this happens that coincides with there being a flat Earth, rather than just believing that, it's curved. Moving on. Why didn't the whole ship just get smaller and smaller, or bigger and bigger? That's what should happen on a flat Earth. But it didn't happen. Why didn't it? Perhaps the answer had to do with the shape of the Earth. Perhaps the Earth wasn't flat after all. Perhaps it had some other shape. What? What if the Earth had a curved surface? Crazy! What would happen to a ship then? Well, it would probably do that. You can see what happens yourself. Using a big ball and a ship made from an eraser, a toothpick, and a piece of paper. Oddly specific, but I get it. With one hand, hold the ball in front of you at eye level. Use the other hand to move the ship. When a ship sails away over a curved surface, the bottom disappears first. When it returns, the top appears first. Well, that makes sense. That's what happens. Can't argue with that. The Greeks decided the Earth must have a curved surface, not must have had, because it still is the same Earth, I think, at least. That would explain why ships seem to sink and rise. They also saw that the same thing happened no matter which way a ship was heading, east, west, north, or south, or west. The Earth must curve in all directions. Was it round? They found the answer in the night sky. Ooh, we're going to get planetary here. The Greeks had studied the sky for many years. They knew that the sun made its own light and the moon did not. The moon shone because it reflected light from the sun. So that's how that works. They also knew that the moon traveled around the Earth, and as it did so, different parts of it were lighted up by the sun. That's why the moon seemed to change its shape, why they might see a sliver of the moon, a bigger piece, or a full moon. They saw a full moon whenever the moon was on the far side of the Earth from the sun. Well, that's a very large person. That's a little concerning. I don't think the Greeks were that big. That's probably just a drawing. It's probably just a drawing. Don't worry, guys. There's no giant Greeks. They can't harm you. But sometimes a shadow dimmed the light of a full moon. An eclipse took place. The shadow seemed to sweep across the face of the moon. The edge of the shadow was curved, and it was like part of a circle. The Greeks knew that this shadow was the Earth's. It was the shadow that the Earth cast in space. When the moon moved through the shadow, an eclipse took place. Ah, look at that. Using their eyes and their old thinking noodles, those darn Greeks, they were so smart, weren't they? Sometimes the moon was high in the sky during an eclipse. Sometimes it was low. Yet as long as the sun, earth, and moon were lined up, an eclipse took place. And the edge of the shadow was always the same curve. There was only one shape that always cast the same shadow. Do you know what that is? If you're right ahead of me, then you do. That shape is round. A ball, for example, always casts the same shadow no matter how it is turned. That's kind of interesting. Honestly, I guess I haven't really thought about that, but it's true. It casts the same shadow no matter where the light is coming from. Feel free to experiment with any balls that you may have at hand. And that is how the Greeks found out the Earth is round. You can test the discovery yourself. Shine a bright light on a plate, a can, and a ball. You can make each one cast a circle-shaped shadow. Circle-shaped shadow. Am I the only one that's hard to say for? Circle-shaped shadows. Circle-shaped Alright, I'm going to move on before I embarrass myself. You can make each one cast a circle-shaped shadow. Nailed it. On a wall in front of you. But only the ball always casts this shadow. Have a fun little experiment there for your kids. If your kids are reading things on the internet that are making them confuse the very substance that we call home and the reality of that thing. The Greeks made many other discoveries. One even worked out the size of the Earth. He said it measured 25,000 miles around the middle. We know he was right, but some Greeks thought he was wrong. Idiots. These were Greeks who wrote geography books. They drew maps of the world as they knew it. They did not know about the Americas, so the maps showed Europe, Africa, Asia, and an ocean. This world did not look as if it could be 25,000 miles around. Geographers said it was smaller. Like I said, bunch of idiots. I guess right there you've got an old-school Greek-style map. Look at how small that whole world is. Little did they know that there was so much other stuff out there. It's crazy. I mean, who's to say that places like the Americas even existed before the Greeks found them? I mean, it's not like there were people living here or anything like that. Early maps showed nothing but an ocean between Europe and Asia. If a ship sailed west, it should come to Japan and China, but ships were small. They could not carry much food or water, and maps showed nowhere to stop for supplies. No one set sail for Asia. No one needed to. No one needed to. That's... Alright, well, I guess not. If they didn't think there was anything there, then why would they need to? For hundreds of years, traders carried goods overland. Overland? Overland? That's one word? Carried goods overland. Carried goods overland from Asia to Europe. But during the 1400s, war broke out, and land routes were closed. Now people wanted to find a sea route to the lands of silks and spices they called the Indies. To India, China, Japan, and the Spice Islands. Ooh, is that where the Spice Girls live? I hope so. I'd like to visit Spice Island and see them Spice Girls, you know what I'm saying. Maps showed two routes. One led around Africa, then east to the Indies, and sure enough, we've got, follow the little ship there, isn't this helpful? Going around Africa, apparently that's what Africa looks like. and up on here to the Spice Islands and get your Spice Girl love. And what have we got here? Oils and perfumes, pepper plant, buying pepper, and silks. Why is that guy... Guy looks kind of like the meme face. I'll put the meme face in here. Just slam it in here. Yeah, that guy. The other led west across the unknown ocean. Unknown ocean. That sounds badass. I mean, I know that they're known now, but why didn't we keep that name? Unknown Ocean. That would be really friggin' sweet name for an ocean, don't you think so? Christopher Columbus wanted to sail west to the Indies. He read what the Greek geographers had said. He studied maps. The ones he liked best showed the ocean as quite small. The Indies seemed to be only a few thousand miles away. Columbus felt sure that he could reach them. And here he is, feeling quite sure of himself, apparently. He's got some fruits and things there. Yeah, looks like he's doing all right. Good job, Chris. Good job. On his first trip, Columbus found land just where he expected to. He thought it was the Indies, but it wasn't. Or was not. I don't want to paraphrase here, even though I'm sure I've done a lot of that. Columbus never reached the Indies. Other explorers soon discovered why. Columbus had reached a place that did not appear on their maps. He had reached a new world, which was later named the Americas. That's where I live! Beyond the Americas was another ocean, which must surely lead to the Indies. And there is good old Christopher Columbus landing on land that people are like, what the hell are you doing here? Ferdinand Magellan also believed the Earth was smaller than it really is. He planned to sail around it to find a way past the Americas and across the second ocean to the Indies. Then he would sail home around Africa. It was a terrible trip that lasted 3 years. That's kind of sucky. Many men lost their lives. That's really sucky. One of them was Magellan. Oh, he died? That's a shame. I was liking that guy so far. But when the other survivors reached home, they had proved the Earth was really round and that ships could sail around it. So this is the Voyage of Magellan, in which so many people died, and it took 3 years, and there's people dying. I feel kind of bad for this guy here, but I don't know, they seem kind of content with death. I don't know. Aren't you just a little bit? You kind of have to be. It could come at any moment. Ooh, that's a real picture. Today, we have spaceships and satellites in space. They take photos of the Earth. People everywhere can see for themselves. Isn't that inspirational? I don't know why they didn't just draw that, but I guess it is kind of cool to have a picture of, I guess, the space station. That's not the space station. I don't know what that is. That's one of the satellites, I guess. One of the satellites. The Earth is round. I like the way they've ended that there. So, yeah. If any of you flat Earth folks thought about Earth being flat or whatever, here you go. It's so easy, even a kid could understand it. Right? Well, thank you for joining me on this educational adventure around the round world. If you like this kind of video, feel free to give it a like and give us a follow if you're so inclined. Also, feel free to check us out at wereedbooks.com. There are going to be a lot more videos coming in the near future, and I do hope that you'll join me again when we read something together. Ta-ta.